Wall Street closes mixed with the S&P 500 notching an intraday record and registering its 8th positive week out of the last 9. The Nasdaq and the Dow Jones closed lower. Asian markets traded largely lower given a weak handover from Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty is also suggesting a weak start for the Indian market. Crude prices gained for the second straight week with Brent rising to about $85 a barrel as summer demand peaks in the United States. Precious metals, gold and silver slump as the US 10-year yield rises. The GST Council decides to roll out Aadhaar-based GST verification in a phased manner across the country. GST on hostel accommodation outside educational institutions up to 20,000 rupees a month has been waived, and railway services have also been exempt, while the issue of rate rationalization on fertilizers has been referred to the group of ministers. A money control report suggests market regulator SEBI suspects front-running and conducted search operations at Sandeep Tandon-owned Quant Mutual Fund. A release by the fund says it is committed to cooperating with the regulator and will continue to furnish data when required. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines that we are tracking. But before we talk about them in greater detail, as always, first up, let's take a look at the Asian markets. They are largely lower in trade today, and the losses are led by the Taiwanese index. That should come up for you on the screen. A 1.4% cut on the Taiwanese index right now. Hang Seng too is not doing so well, 0.9% higher. Nikkei is outperforming. That's the only Asian market in the positive territory today. So if you look at the Nikkei rates, that's up around 0.3%. But other than that, it's a red-looking screen across the Asian markets. The Japanese yen has weakened, and the wise finance minister has said that they are ready to intervene if needed. So a lot happening in the Japanese market as well. But for now, it is in the green. The GIFT Nifty, that will come up for you on the screen, and that one is indicating that the start for our own markets could be in the green today. The rates there, that will get updated in just a bit, but GIFT Nifty is the one that you should be watching out for because that is the one that will indicate the moves on our markets today. So that is 104 points lower right now. A while back, it was indicating that it could be in the green, so there's been a sharp fall from those levels, 104 points lower on the GIFT Nifty, and that is something that could impact our own markets as well. Let's talk about the US markets. Wall Street ended mostly flat on Friday as investors worry that an AI-fueled tech rally may be getting stretched out. S&P 500 and Nasdaq dipped after Nvidia snapped its 8-week gaining streak, dragging technology stocks. Dow Jones ended about 16 points higher. The Dow posted its best week since May, closing with a gain of 1.45%. The S&P 500 posted an upward move of 0.6%, and the Nasdaq closed the week flat. And as the Federal Reserve continues to mull over a possible rate cut towards the end of the year, former Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren comments inflation is key to deciding the policy stance.
Series of reports that look like inflation was flattening out, and that's using both the CPI and the PCE. Right around the meeting, we got a CPI that was more favorable. I am expecting we'll probably get some more favorable inflation numbers over the next couple of months. If that does happen, that would set up a potential for an easing in September and possibly one in December. So I don't think we're down to just one yet. I think it does depend on how the data comes in. If the data doesn't continue to come in similar to what we saw with the CPI in a favorable sense, then it might be difficult to get the two in. But I think we'll have to see how over the course of the summer the inflation data comes in.
And while Fed's inflation concerns seem to grow wary, investors hope for a break with a rate cut, says Oppenheimer Asset Management's chief investment strategist, John Stolfus.
The market represents many different constituencies, and in particular, the highly leveraged crowd has been really hurt by the higher rates. You go from a band of 0 to 0.25 to 5.25 to 5.5% on the benchmark rate. That creates the VIG is a lot more costly, carry cost. It's all problematic, and so when we look at that, that's an argument that occurs. But overall, you know, it's not a bad situation when bond issuers have to pay for the privilege of borrowing money, and people, when they build their models, have to think a little more responsibly than they may have when money was for free.
Okay, all right, that's global market action, but how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have a research team joining in with what the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you. Vivek, let me come across to you first up. What is the market setup looking like today?
Well, good morning. You could say that's a slightly muted setup that we are working with, this Monday morning, given the fact that U.S. markets, largely closed on a muted basis. Dow Jones ending above the green line, but, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, like we mentioned earlier, slightly in the red. Now, what's actually something that we need to watch out for is actually crude oil prices. Crude oil prices, while they slipped marginally on Friday, they continue to hover near the $80 a barrel mark. So WTI crude oil prices right now just above the $80.4 a barrel mark. So that'll be an important parameter to track going forward. Now, talking about the week gone by and how did Indian markets perform? Indian markets were marginally up, but remember, this is on the back of a 3-week winning streak that Indian markets have seen. And in fact, what actually led the markets higher last week? It was the Nifty Bank. On 2 out of the 4 trading sessions that we saw, the Nifty Bank was significantly outperformed the benchmark indices, and it was led by the top private banks, so HDFC Bank, ICICI and Axis Bank, clearly outperforming the rest of the markets. The Nifty IT Bank too, after a while, rallied on the back of slightly positive commentary coming out of the Accenture results. So that was the key setup that we saw in the week gone by. Friday, certain amount of profit booking was seen, especially names in the broader end of the market. Some of the commodity stocks, some of the fertilizer stocks saw a bit of profit booking after a significant rally. So that'll be something, this particular trend that we will need to watch out for. Now, Asian markets today opening subdued. GIFT Nifty also indicating a gap down start for our own markets. Key events to watch, large trade as far as car trade is concerned, and also, the monsoon parliament session also starts today. That will also be something that market participants will keep an eye out for.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for that, Vivek. Let me go across to Abhishek. He'll list out all the stocks to watch out for in today's trading session.
So to begin with, Pharma Industries have got 74.3 crore worth of orders from New Space India. Now, TVS Motors has signed up an agreement with CSC Grameen e-stores for its commercial vehicle range, especially in 3-wheelers. MCX, the board has shortlisted candidates for the post of MD and CEO. They will submit the name to regulator very soon. Z Media to consider fundraising via issuance of equity shares on June 26. Now, Prestige Estates has got a board approval for raising funds up to 5,000 crores via QIP and other methods as well. PV Fintech, 2 unsecured loans. It has given 200 crore to Policy Bazaar and 50 crore to Paisa Bazaar. Cipla, there is US FDA which has issued 6 inspectional observations in Form 483 for the company's manufacturing unit that is there in Goa. JSW, they have received a letter of agreement for 300 megawatt of wind solar hybrid power project from SCCI. Lupin, they have received an establishment inspection report from US FDA for the manufacturing facility which is there in New Jersey. Sources on car trade, there will be a block trade of about 10.4 crore shares which is valued at close to about 500 crore which will take place in trade today. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Those are all the stocks that will be on our radar now. Finally, let me go across to Mangnam joining in with all the cues from the F&O space this morning. Hey, Mangnam.
Good morning. So, on Friday, we saw profit taking across the frontline indices. The Nifty Bank was the one that actually led the indices down. But in fact, it was the Nifty Bank that led the indices higher in the previous trading sessions as well. The mid-caps continued to outperform. This is an important week from an F&O standpoint because it is the week of the June series expiry. And what we've noticed over the last 3 trading sessions is that there is some supply as the market, moves around that 23,650 mark. So as you can see, the last 3 trading sessions, 3 excursions upwards of 23,600, and the Nifty ended much lower than that level itself. The nature of cash market flows continues to be colored by all the large trades that are taking place. There were a couple on Friday as well. So the FI sold about 1,800 crores. The DIs went ahead and bought 1,250 crores. And there are a couple of large trades today as well. But the action in index futures by the FIs does indicate that, there could be some sort of consolidation, especially on the Nifty Bank end of things, where they sold about 654 odd crores after purchasing in the earlier part of the week. The FI long short exposure stands stable at around 57.43 itself. And, the way the market has been, it indicates a range. What is this range? 23,600 call writers extremely active for this expiry week. We have 84 rupees premium on that one. And at the lower level is the 23,400 put, which is equally active as well, telling you that the street is playing for a range between 23,300 to 23,700 for this week. So that's exactly, the congestion and the resistance zone for the Nifty comes in, and along with the support zone. A bunch of stocks that I'll be watching out for. Chambal Fertilizers and Granules have both entered F&O ban in the expiry week, and we have Birla Soft, which is out of F&O ban. So those are a bunch of stocks that will be on our radar too.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us and prepping us up for this trading day ahead. Time for a short break now. When we return, a money control report suggests market regulator SEBI suspects front running at Sandeep Tandon-owned Quant Mutual Fund. More on that when we return. Welcome back. Let's get you the key developments from the GST Council meeting over the weekend. In a relief for taxpayers, the Council had decided not to seek interest and penalties for demand notices issued between FY18 and FY20. The Council has also recommended a uniform rate of 12% on milk cans and carton boxes, while the rate on fire sprinklers is also fixed at 12%. Services provided by railways like platform tickets have been exempt from GST. The issue of rate rationalization on fertilizer has been referred to the group of ministers. And during the meeting, the Finance Minister also addressed GST issues that would come as a relief for hostlers living outside educational institutes. She also announced the Council's approval of a nationwide rollout of Aadhaar-based GST authentication. Listen in.
Now, hostels which are for students but outside of an educational institutions are also getting exempt. The measure of relief for students and working professionals, Council has recommended to exempt accommodation services having a value of supply up to 20,000 per person per month. The condition, of course, is those provided these services are supplied for a minimum continuous period of 90 days. There is going to be a rolling out of biometric-based Aadhaar authentication in an all-India basis. You know that we ran a pilot in Gujarat, also a pilot in Puducherry. There have been very good inputs coming out of it. So this will help us to combat fraudulent input tax credit claims made through fake invoices.
Okay, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman met state finance ministers ahead of the union budget to take their suggestions. She had met capital market experts, economists, corporate India representatives and farmer associations early last week. Tamil Nadu asked the centre to release disaster relief fund of worth 3,000 crore rupees immediately. Karnataka, meanwhile, pushed for a fair revenue sharing math between centre and states. We also spoke to Diya Kumari, the finance minister of BJP-ruled Rajasthan, on their demands from the finance minister.
जितनी भी राजस्थान की डिमांड्स हैं उसको हम लोगों ने आज, क्योंकि आज प्री बजट मीटिंग थी जो हमारी केंद्रीय वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमन ने बुलाई थी, और बहुत सारी सभी स्टेट्स के हमारे फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर्स थे और सभी ने अपनी अपनी डिमांड्स रखी। हम लोगों ने भी राजस्थान की ओर से जितनी भी महत्वपूर्ण योजनाएं भी हैं जो हम लोग चाहते हैं आगे आने वाले समय में, जो हम लोग विकास के कार्य चाहते हैं, जहां बजट एलोकेशंस ज्यादा होनी चाहिए, उन सब बातों
मैम कुछ ऐसे पॉइंट्स यहाँ पे आप बता पाएं, जैसे
ERCP के लिए रखा, JJM के लिए रखा गया है, कुछ नए नेशनल हाईवेज, कुछ रेलवे लाइंस के लिए, हर तरीके से, क्योंकि अब अपेक्षाएं बहुत है। राजस्थान की जनता भी देख रही है कि डबल इंजन की सरकार स्थापित हो चुकी है और वैसे ही काम हो।
मैम बोरिंग लिमिट पे कुछ पूछा क्या, इफ दे वुड लाइक टू एक्सटेंड इट?
नहीं, देखिए, जो हम लोगों ने बहुत सारी डिटेल जो लेटर भी भेजा गया है जो मुख्यमंत्री जी ने निर्मला सीतारमन जी मंत्री जी को दिया था, उसमें बहुत सारी डिटेल सब कुछ है, लेकिन जो बड़ी बड़ी मुख्य जो डिमांड्स थी वो अभी मैंने आपको बताया। ये राजस्थान।
Okay, all right. The budget countdown has begun. With that, let's move on to an important story. Sources tell Money Control that the market regulator SEBI has conducted search and seizure operations at Sandeep Tandon-owned Quant Mutual Fund. N. Mahalakshmi of Money Control is now here to give us all the details. What are you picking up?
Thanks, Sonal. So this is a big story. Quant Mutual Fund has been the largest and the best performing mutual fund in the country. And what we have picked up from sources is that in the last, over the last week, search and seizure operations have been conducted in Quant Mutual Fund offices, one in Bombay and one in Hyderabad, which is related to a beneficiary account. So that's all we pick up. The nature of allegations is not absolutely clear. There are 2-3 ways that in which irregularities in investment operations happen. One is a clear case of front running, where a dealer sort of front runs a trade, where you make trades through mule accounts and then you benefit from the price rise that happens in the stock when the larger block gets bought in the market. That's one kind of trade. We are not very clear if that's the only thing, or is there something else which is related to the promoter. We do pick up that there might be something more than what we saw in the case of Axis Mutual Fund, which is a very straight case. Those things are not absolutely clear, but it is very clear that the search and seizure operations happened, and the company has also, of course, confirmed yesterday that they got inquiries from SEBI and they're cooperating with the regulator.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all those important details. Quant Mutual Fund has been in focus, as Mahalakshmi was pointing out. It's seen a tremendous growth in the AUM as well, but this is a developing story, and we'll keep getting you back for more details on this one. With that, we'll do one thing. We'll slip into a short break. Up next, we'll get you all the cues from the commodities market, so stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're watching Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18. Well, we spoke about a whole host of things. It's time to talk about commodities now. A lot of action there as well. Manisha Gupta is joining us, as always, with the update from the commodities space. Good morning, Manisha.
Morning, Sonal. Thank you for that. Well, I'll start with the crude oil prices, which have seen 2 weeks of gains. We've seen 3% of gains in the previous week and the 4% week before that. So it has been good going. They're holding above 80 for WTI, above 85 for the Brent crude prices. While there is, of course, strength in the US dollar, which is weighing on prices, but then again, there are way too many reasons to be shorting crude oil right now. You have the US demand, which seems to be improving because there's decline in inventories there. And then there is escalating geopolitical tensions, whether it's about Israel, where troops are advancing further into Gaza, or Ukraine attacks continuing on Russian oil facilities. All of that has been supportive for markets. We also have seen some bit of a profit taking today because of the strength in US dollar in precious metals. Gold and silver both have seen a bit of a negative cues coming in, and that's exactly many of the industrial metals also have opened today. Iron ore has continued to decline for 4 straight weeks now. We're looking at some bit of a pressure also come back in case of copper, aluminum, steel in early Asia today.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Manisha, for joining us as always. That's the update coming in from the commodity space. Let's move on now to some national news. Amidst the exam fiasco in India, the Health Ministry has announced the postponement of the NEET PG examinations. The exams that were supposed to be held yesterday, that is the 23rd of June, have now been shifted to a later date, which is yet to be announced. The decision comes as the government deals with irregularities pertaining to the UGC NET and NEET UG exams and stated that the move was made to maintain the sanctity of the examinations. Meanwhile, the NTA Director General Subodh Kumar Singh was also removed from his post following the exam controversies. Let's move on to some international news now. Swiss court has found 4 members of the Hinduja family guilty of exploiting their staff at their Geneva villa. Well, Prakash Hinduja and his wife Kamal were sentenced to 4.5 months in prison. Their son Ajay and his wife Namrata received 4-year jail term. The prosecution had decided to pursue the case despite the family reaching an out-of-court settlement with 3 of their employees who had accused them of exploitation. Sanjay Suri gets us more on this story from London.
A Swiss court has sentenced 4 members of the Hinduja family to up to 4.5 years in prison for exploiting and maltreating their servants. Prakash Hinduja and his wife Kamal were given 4.5-year sentences by the court in Geneva. Their son Ajay and daughter-in-law Namrata received 4-year sentences. The Hindujas have appealed against these sentences. They said in a statement that they are appalled and disappointed by the decision by the court of first instance, and that their appeal now makes the present judgment ineffective. They said that they must be presumed to be innocent until a final judgment is handed down by the higher court. They said there is no effective detention of any family member currently. The Hindujas were not in court when the sentence was read out on Friday. The sentences now that we have seen were handed down despite an out-of-court settlement reached between the Hinduja family and 3 servants that they had employed who had brought the case and the allegations against them. Under that settlement, the servants withdrew their complaint after receiving an undisclosed amount in payment from the Hinduja family. But the prosecution decided to proceed with the case because they said that this is a violation of very serious Swiss laws. Prosecution had alleged that the servants were paid the equivalent in Swiss francs of 20,000 to 35,000 rupees a month, which was far below fair Swiss wages for their job. The prosecutor argued in court that the Hindujas spent less on their servants than they did on the family pet, on which the Hindujas, as the account cited showed, spent about 65 to 70,000 rupees a month. It was also alleged that the servants were on duty up to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they had to sleep on mattresses on the floor in the basement of the Hinduja mansion in Geneva. The Hindujas argued on the other side that the servants were paid fair wages. They denied the accusations that they were not allowed to leave the house to go outside and step outside into town. They said the prosecution only wanted to do in the Hindujas. They argued that this should be a case of justice, not social justice. The Hindujas were cleared of the more serious charge of human trafficking on the ground that the servants knew the kind of contract they were getting into and that they had accepted. The wealth of the Hinduja brothers is variously estimated between $20 and $45 billion. The group is spread across 38 countries and employs about 200,000 people.
Okay, all right, that's the update coming in. With that, let's move on. The first session of the 18th Lok Sabha will begin today. This will be the first Lok Sabha session post the election. The session will begin with the oath-taking of the newly elected MPs, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The election to the post of Lok Sabha Speaker will take place on June 26th, and President Draupadi Murmu will address the joint sitting of both the houses on June 27th. The debate on the motion of thanks to the President's address will begin on June 28th. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to respond to the debate on July 2nd. Both the houses are expected to go into a brief recess and reassemble on July 22nd for the presentation of the union budget. Okay, all right. With that, we'll do one thing. We'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast, but do stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next with all the market action.